addicted to Watchtower? What does that even mean? How can somebody be addicted to an organization? If you study addiction and if you find out why people get addicted to things, and don't get me wrong, we're all addicted to something. I'm addicted to this piece of technology. I think many people can relate. Why do we get addicted to things? There's only one reason only. Because it meets our emotional needs. Every addiction starts with pain and then it leads to pleasure. It's the quickest way that we find to go from pain to pleasure. If people are stressed out and they feel pain, guess what happened? They go into addiction in order to ease their pain. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's sugar. But in the case of a Watchtower, can we really say that people get addicted because of pain? Well, the truth is many people got converted into this religion because they were going through a hard time. They were really going through a hard time in their life, whatever it was. Maybe they lost their loved one. Maybe they lost their child. Maybe they were going through a divorce. Maybe going through a breakdown of some sort of really emotional stress. And at that time, somebody came, knocked on their door, and presented a good news, a hope to see their dead loved ones, a hope for a better future. And even if there is nothing good in this world that they could possibly see, no matter how good their life was, Jehovah's Witnesses would offer hope. They would offer a life without problems. No matter what the problem was, it could be solved. Even death was not a problem because in the future there would be a resurrection. See, the emotional needs that we have, they're very strong and we make our decisions based on them. And the number one, the top need that we have is a need to feel safe. It's a top need. There's 6 of them. We'll go through all 6. But I tell you, the number one, if you did not have it, you would not be listening to me right now. If you were not certain that the chair that you're sitting upon, or the ceiling that is above you will not collapse, you would not be listening to me. We need safety. We need certainty. We need sense of security in order to function normally. Without it, we can't. Otherwise, we're way too stressed. And guess what? Being a Jehovah's Witness, the level of safety, the level of security, of certainty is from 1 to 10. I would give it a 10. A 10. Because not only you have a sense of community that if something goes wrong, you have people you can call on, people you can rely on. Maybe not everybody had those individuals, and you could disagree with me on that. But majority of people who don't have a tribe like Jehovah's Witnesses do, they don't have the sense of security. We at least had that feeling that, you know what, if something goes wrong, you know, if the house burns down, and we can turn into the brothers and sisters in the congregation and maybe they'll help me out. Many times there was a natural disaster and Jehovah's Witnesses would help each other out. They would have that sense of community and the feeling that, you know what, there are people out there that would help me out in case of disaster or huge problems that I'll be facing. Another one, they would explain exactly where we came from, where we are, and where we're going. That information was spelled out to the very detailed. Where they would, they would say, "Oh, we're not surprised by the pandemic. Everybody's surprised by the pandemic." Not Jehovah's Witnesses. We knew it's going to happen because we're living in the last days. No matter how bad the news is, we knew about this. It's part of the prophecy, and we know where we're living in, what kind of times, and we know what's going to happen in the future. There was an enormous amount of certainty because of the knowledge that they gave us, because of their teachings that they gave us. So we felt it. We felt safe. We felt like we knew things that the whole world didn't know. And people were scratching their heads about, whether God exists, what his name is, or what the future holds. We had that no problem. We were certain about those things. Everyone was on the same page. When we went to the Kingdom Hall, we knew exactly what's going to happen there. We knew exactly what kind of people will be there. We knew exactly what kind of clothing they'll be wearing, we knew the teachings that they'll be teaching. We had a lot of routine and we had a lot of certainty, and he felt safe. He felt good. He felt like we were part of a specific structure that gave us that sense of certainty in our life. That's why I'm saying that from 1 to 10, certainty and safety, number 10 that Jehovah's gave us. Now, safety, if it's too much of it and too much routine, and we can predict everything that's going to happen today and tomorrow and the day after day, it's the same thing over and over and over again. Guess what? We get bored. We do. Therefore, the second need that we needed is uncertainty. That's right. It's the exact opposite. We need variety in our life. We need things to change. Otherwise, it's boring. And if you just sit and do nothing, after a while, you're going to be like, I got to do something. I got to change the routine in my life. Otherwise, I'm going to go crazy. So many people were saying, you know what? There is a certain routine that I need, but beyond that, I need to spice my life up. Well, how did Jehovah's Witnesses do this? Well, they did it actually very interesting. Every meeting, although the structure was the same, but every talk was different. You never knew who would give the talk. You would not know what the talk is going to be about, although the teachings were the same and they were recycled over and over again. But by the time the material is recycled, because there's so many books and so many teachings, so many doctrines, so many things you can touch upon, by the time the material gets recycled, you probably forgot most of it. And then it gets, new talk, new meeting, and every time is different. When I was young and I was going to a Catholic church, they would sing exactly the same songs, they would repeat exactly the same prayers, and majority of the time that I was there, it was exactly the same thing over and over again, word for word. While when I was going to the Kingdom Hall, it was actually much more interesting because every talk was different. We studied different publications, studied different books. Therefore, there was more variety. Great. Now, additional thing that really got Jehovah's Witnesses excited was a new light. New light was great. We're like, did you hear about the new light? We were excited about it. Nobody thought of, oh, you know what? The old one was BS. The old one, we've been preaching it for 20 years straight, and it turned out to be wrong. Nobody thought about that. Everybody was excited. It's like, see, Holy Spirit is working because we discovered something new. And this shows how hard Jehovah's Witnesses are working, how hard the governing body is working. They're sitting there with the Bible, studying all the history, and they're trying to find out the deep things of God in the Bible. And therefore, they're finding a new light for us. Yeah, we thought about it and we were excited about it. And that was part of the variety, part of the new things that we were excited about. We never thought about, oh, you know what? That means what we've been teaching for X amount of years was BS. No, we didn't think that way. We thought, hey, exciting, something new, variety. I give variety from 1 to 10. I'll give them 6 because truthfully, it was a lot of the same material just recycled, right? And there was not much variety when it comes to individuals. They couldn't do much because of the strict guidelines that they gave us. But there was some variety, right? We had different conventions in different places. And then they had international conventions, a lot of things that were different compared to other religions that would do the same things over and over again, repeat the same songs and repeat the same prayers. I think Jehovah's Witnesses had quite a bit of variety. So I would give them 6 out of 10. Next one, a big one, is a feeling of love. It's a feeling of connection, a feeling of belonging into a group. That is extremely important. It's part of our need. We're human beings, and guess what? We live in tribes for thousands of years. We need a tribe. We need to feel loved. As a matter of fact, if we don't, we will die. If a baby has everything, he's born and he has food and water and oxygen, and then you change the diapers, but you don't give a baby love. You don't cuddle it. You don't kiss it. You don't show the baby love. The baby will die. Because love is something so deep in us that without it, people commit suicide because they feel worthless. They feel like nobody will love them, and therefore their life has no meaning, and they clock out. Love is a really, really powerful, and it is a need. It's not a want, it's a need. And we need to feel loved. Very, very powerful. And the sense of community that Jehovah's Witnesses gave, the love bombing that happens very often when people start being interested in joining, because they call them brothers and sisters. Here's a spiritual family. And it doesn't matter if you lost your worldly father and mother and your worldly family. Don't worry. You're going to get new ones. We're going to be your brothers and sisters now. And they create that community. I was very happy to be a Jehovah's Witness, and I was very happy among the people in the congregation. I treated them like my family, like brothers and sisters that I had. So there is definitely that connection, no question about it, right? Many people really miss it when they wake up from it and they leave, or when they're disfellowshipped, or they decide to separate themselves from the congregation. They truly miss it. They think they're going to be able to rebuild a similar community outside, and many of them struggle with it, really struggle with it. And I feel for them, especially for those who live in small communities where there's like a small town or small village and there's quite a bit of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're isolated from that group, and they bump into Jehovah's Witnesses all the time. They really feel that isolation, and it's really tough for them. And it might be very tough for them to build a community outside. So for Jehovah's Witnesses, from 1 to 10, I would give them 8. And the reason why I would give them 8, not 10, is because obviously the sense of love and connection, they have it limited to only those who are Jehovah's Witnesses. So when it comes to people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses, they're so-called worldly people, they do show love and connection with them, but very cautiously, right? If that person is a worldly person, they'll be kind to them, the co-workers, the neighbors, they'll be good neighbors, but they'll be very careful to what extent they will spend time with them and associate with them, because they're really afraid that this person might actually influence their faith. So they're limited to what extent they can show their love and connection. And of course, towards people who are disfellowshipped or resigned or left the religion, they're not allowed to show any type of love or connection. So that's why I would give them 8 out of 10. Now, next one. In order for you, before we go to the next one, in order for you to connect with people, you have to show that you're the same. Here's one thing that can help you develop rapport. People like each other when they're like each other. So it's very simple. If people have things in common, it's very easy to develop rapport. It's very easy to connect with people who think just like we do. The more we have in common, the easier it is to find that connection. That's why it's so easy for Jehovah's Witnesses to find the connection when they join another congregation, because they know 80% of the people's thoughts before they even walk in the door. While with people outside of the kind of environment, it might be a lot more difficult, because you don't know what people think, you don't know their beliefs, you don't know their opinions. So in order to have a good connection with people, you have to be the same like the others. However, in order for you to feel special, to feel significant, and that's the need number 4, to feel special and significant, we all need it. It's not a want, it's a need. In order for you to feel special and significant, you have to compare yourself to others and somehow find that you are as good as them or better than them. Okay? Let me tell you the example. Imagine you're in space. Okay? How would you know how fast you're traveling if there is nothing around you? Would you know whether you're going 100 kilometers an hour, 2 kilometers an hour, 1,000 kilometers an hour? You wouldn't. You have to compare yourself to something else in order to know your speed. And it's the same thing with us when it comes to our self-esteem and significance. If we want to know whether we're doing something good, we need to compare it to something else. If you want to know if you're a good soccer player and there's nobody on the field except you, how would you know if you're a good soccer player? You wouldn't. You need to compare yourself to others. And you see at least a standard. If you play with kids and all the kids are not as good as you, you're going to feel great because you're better than everybody else on the field. But truthfully, you got to find people who are at least equal to you and then play with them in order to feel some sort of self-worth. And like, you know what? I'm bringing something to the team. I am doing something that people see a value of. Feeling special is extremely important to us. This is where our identity starts shaping. When we start feeling like this is who I am because I'm different than everybody else. This is my skill. This is what I can do. This is my experience, my knowledge, and this is how I can make an impact on other people's life by creating something, whether it's a product or service or whatever it is that you're doing. And by making that impact, you see that there is something special about you, something unique, something different than anybody else's. And once you discover what that is, and once you see that your uniqueness makes other people's life better, you start feeling good about yourself. You start developing self-esteem. You start developing that feeling of feeling special. That's the healthy way of doing it. Now, there is also unhealthy way of feeling special is when you try to tear everybody else down in order for you to feel good about yourself. It's actually very common right now, especially because of social media, when it's so easy to criticize other people, other religions, other points of view, other politicians, other famous people, whoever you want. You can criticize them right, left, and center. You don't even have to put your name on it, and you can do it freely, and people will read it all over the world. And people feel special, feel significant because of their ego being driven by the idea of I'm better than you because I know something you don't. Right? However, with Jehovah's Witnesses, how do they develop that significance? Well, they did it exactly the same way. They would say, we're special. We are chosen by God. We're the only one true religion. There is no other religion like ours. We are the true religion chosen by Jehovah. Nobody can come close. We have the best love. We have the best unity. We have the best website. We have the best Bible translation. We have the best, the best, the best. That's how they see themselves. And their ego is actually quite high because they think they're their best. When you have that, too much of it, okay? The challenge with that is you don't grow because you see like everybody else is not as good as you. Then who can teach you? Who can teach you if you're the best? Can Bible scholar teach you if the Bible scholar disagrees with you and you have the truth and he doesn't? It's very challenging. If your self-esteem, if your ego is so high up, you're uncoachable. This is why it's so difficult for Jehovah's Witnesses to even sit and have a discussion with you because they think they know the truth. They have it like down packed to every single detail and they know everything the best. So if you show them something that they disagree with, you're obviously wrong. Automatically. It doesn't matter how much evidence you bring to the table because they have the truth. It's also connected with their identity. They think they identify as Jehovah's Witnesses, therefore they identify as the witnesses of God, and everybody else serves Satan. Very difficult to have a conversation with a person where you are actually, by questioning their faith, you're questioning their identity. Those two things are connected like this, and it's very difficult to open that mind because they would defend it even illogically if you attack their identity. One of the strongest force in the human nature is to stay consistent with the way we define ourselves. In order for us to stay sane, we have to know who we are, and then we defend that identity. And Jehovah's Witnesses have very clear-cut identity of who they are, what they do, what their purpose is, why they're here, what the future holds. No problem. And they have no problem sharing that with other people. But when you try to undermine this, right, they don't feel secure, right? They will shun you. They will run away from you. They will not debate you. They will not engage in conversations because you're attacking them. And if anyone who disagrees with them, is viewed as an enemy. So it's very, very challenging. So when it comes to significance, from 1 to 10, I would give them 8 because they're thinking they're the best. I would give them 8 instead of 10 because on individual basis, Jehovah's Witnesses a lot of times struggle with self-esteem. They struggle with self-esteem because they're part of collective group. And as individuals, a lot of times they didn't build their life. They didn't build anything significant in their life. And a lot of them feel like they're inadequate. They feel like, well, yes, there's a lot of people who have the privileges in the congregation, maybe elders, ministers, celebrants, pioneers, but that's like 10% of the congregation. The rest of the congregation, they don't really have any special identities. So they don't feel like they have accomplished anything special. Therefore, they just feel like, okay, the organization is special, but me, myself, I'm not really special. I'm just this average Joe who does average hours or below average, and I'm being treated as an average, right? So as individuals, a lot of them, they struggle with self-esteem, and a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses who leave that organization really have a problem with building self-esteem because they're all attached, their identity and feeling significant with that organization, and without it, there's nothing, right? And they feel like, oh, I just wasted all my life doing something. So it's really challenging. But for Jehovah's Witnesses, I would say level 8. Those four: certainty, variety, love and connection, and significance. Those four will shape the personality of an individual or of a group. However, there's two more that are on a more of a spiritual level. Number one is growth. In this world, whatever we see, it either grows or dies. There's no plateaus anywhere. You're either growing or you're dying. That's it. And growth is extremely important because when we're growing, we feel happy. When we see progress, we feel happy. When things get better, we feel happy. You want to know how to be happy? Progress equals happiness. Grow, and you'll be happy. But when things go down, when things degress, and when things go from here to lower, and things get worse and worse and worse, we're not happy. It affects our happiness. Growth is extremely important. And for Jehovah's Witnesses, growth was very, very limited. You could only grow as an individual in that organization. You could only go into the positions that they would allow you to. And if you're a woman, the growth was very limited. You could be a pioneer. Maybe you could go to, I think, MTS school right now. They're allowing this. But the majority of women, they're not even allowed to hold microphones unless there's no men in the congregation that could possibly do this. It's odd. It's really odd. I asked the question many times, even as an elder. I was asking, like, why is it that we're allowing women to collect money at the assemblies, but we don't allow them to direct traffic on the parking spot, right? Like, why that segregation? But they have the reasons, right? But growth was very limited. Growth was very controlled to what extent you could grow or not. So I would give them a level 2 of growth. Now, contribution is the last piece of the puzzle. Contribution, and a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses will think, yeah, we're all about contribution. We're giving the magazines for free. I mean, we don't charge our time. We go give them, door to door. We're not charging for any of our work. We're all about contribution. I'll give them 2 as well. 3 the most out of 10. Why? Because the contribution has an attachment to it. You're not giving because you're hoping that this person will develop into their own way of doing it. It's not like you're going door to door with food and helping the poor person to stand on their own feet and live their life the way they want to. No, you're going door to door. You're giving the magazines with the hope that that person will join your religion. There are strings attached to your contribution. They are giving. Don't get me wrong. Jehovah's Witnesses, there are givers. And there are a lot of people in the congregation who are very loving, very caring, and they would give very generously. But they most of the time would give generously towards Jehovah's Witnesses only. Even prayers, which shocked me many times. When there would be a natural disaster somewhere, whether it was Katrina or there was a tsunami, and they would pray for brothers and sisters in that region. They wouldn't pray for the people. They wouldn't pray for those who are suffering. They wouldn't pray for those who are starving. They wouldn't pray for those who are affected by it. They would pray only for brothers and sisters who are affected by this. For me, that's weird. If you're contributing, you should contribute towards people who are suffering, not those who are your brothers and sisters, and not to others. And this was really visible, especially recently, when the war in Ukraine broke out. When you had a whole bunch of people from, I'm Polish, so I know what was going on in Poland. They were lined up with different organizations and personal people that would just go there with a sign and say, we have a room, we have a house, come stay with us. We take a family, we take a person, we take a mother with children. But Jehovah's Witnesses would stand there and like, we're taking our brothers and sisters. They would look for Jehovah's Witnesses and they would not offer that help to others. What was worse yet, there were some Jehovah's Witnesses who went to that border and they actually offered their help, but they were canceled on it because they offered that help without going through the channel of Jehovah's Witnesses. They were not assigned to go there. Can you imagine? They went there out of their own kindness, out of their own heart, and they were canceled that they should have waited to be directed. That's why when it comes to the contribution, I give them 2. They do give, but their contributions are very, very controlled in a way that, you know, a lot of very genuine people, very loving and caring people, but they're controlled in order to how much they can give and what they can give and to whom and why, with strings attached. I'm glad I'm out of this, to be honest. But here's interesting thing. Going back to the addiction. Addiction happens every time out of the 6 human needs. If 3 of them are met on a level 7 or more, we're addicted to it. You ask me anything. You ask me about smoking, marijuana. You ask me about drinking, sugar, you name it. Any addiction that people have. If I go through those 6 human needs, I guarantee you that they will find minimum 3, if not more, that are met at the level 7 or higher. And this is what this was with the Jehovah's Witnesses. I believe the level of certainty, I give them 10. Uncertainty, 6. Level of love and connection, 8. Significance at 8. That gives you at least those 3 when it comes to safety, love and connection, and significance on a higher level than 7. And this is why they were addicted. Now, let me ask you this. If you woke up from this organization and you left, I'm pretty sure you were quite confused at the beginning because the sense of certainty that you had was crushed, right? You didn't know where you came from. You don't know where you are. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what your hope is, what the faith is. You don't know who to trust, who not to trust. It's horrible. It feels like your foundations of the house that you're living in, your emotional house, your needs and beliefs, it's crumbling, it's collapsing, and you don't know what else is going to fall. The more you touch, the more you research, the more things are falling apart. Certainty at that moment goes into 0. At least for me, that's how you felt. There was no certainty about anything. Didn't know if I'm going to survive or not. Literally. Variety? You went through the roof to the point where it was more and more new information, and too much uncertainty and too much variety causes us to be fearful, stressful, causes us to be anxious, even trauma, because of way too much uncertainty. We're not certain about anything. Many of you were not certain whether you're going to stay married. You don't know whether your kids will talk to you. You don't know whether your family will talk to you. You don't know if you're going to be able to replace your friends and family with somebody else. You don't know if you're going to keep your employment or your businesses. All those uncertainties I had to deal with. I know exactly what I'm talking about. So I know because I felt it. How about love and connection? Oh, especially if you had most of Jehovah's Witnesses most of your friends and family in the Jehovah's Witness organization. All your love and connection is broken, and now you're suffering. You're suffering a spiritual pain because there is no connection, there is no love. You just realize that everybody who ever loved you conditionally based on your status in a congregation, and without that status, you're nobody. They won't even say hi to you, even though you did nothing wrong to them. You love them, you care about them, you help them, you still love them, you still want to contact, and yet from one day to the next, they're unable to see you and acknowledge your existence, including mothers not acknowledging the existence of their own children. Just hard to even imagine. I think the Bible says that in the last days, right? People will not feel natural affections. Oh boy, next one, significance. Oh boy, you probably felt quite insignificant because all of a sudden, everything you believed in as truth is not. And maybe your ego started exploding because now you're thinking, I know the truth about the truth. And that was not easy to to bring it down. I know I felt it too. I'm like, oh, I thought I knew the truth, but this is what I found out. And maybe you started being cocky. I had those moments. I think most of us did. Because you're finding out information that a lot of times now when we're looking at it, it's simple. But when we were in it, it was like, whoa. It's like extraordinary, the stuff that we're hiding from us. Growth. Well, growth actually explodes if you go the right direction, because significance can be met, like I told you, by destroying somebody else. And it's easy to feel special if you're criticizing somebody. So if you're criticizing Watchtower for all their mistakes, all of a sudden now you still feel good about yourself because you think you're smarter, you're better, you crack the code, you know what's behind the curtain, and start feeling good about yourself. But that doesn't mean that you're a better person. It just means that your ego is exploding. When it comes to growth, the true growth starts when we actually humble ourselves, when we realize, you know what? I was deceived. I did not believe in the proper things. I thought it was the truth. I thought it was in the best religion. I thought it was in the best understanding. I thought I had the best knowledge and education and the Bible and community. I thought I had the best. And then I realized it was not. Because it was not the best. It's time to actually humble myself and realize that I need training. I need knowledge. I need to read books. I need to read other people's opinions, and I don't have to agree with them. I can just look at different perspectives and see why people believe something that I don't, and look at their evidence and look at what convinced them. Why do they believe something that for you for so long it seems so odd? But when you read more and more and you do more research, you're going to start growing as a person. And the last one, contribution. This is a big one. Because once you're free from the Watchtower, you will see that your life has enormous amount of value. Because when you're a Jehovah's Witness, all your dreams, all your special talents that you have, they were all put on for later. Like in the new system, you're going to play your violin. In the new system, you're going to build your dream house. In the new system, you're going to be crocheting or painting or whatever it is that you want to do. In the new system. Now do it as a hobby at home, right? Not a big deal, but don't do it as your career. Because your career, just go part-time work, wash windows, clean houses, get your sustenance of life and just get by and go pioneering. That was encouraged. But when you get out of this mindset and you realize that your life has value, that what you do, that your skills, your knowledge, your experience, that you can make other people's life better, that you contribute to others without wanting something back in return? And that's a real contribution. That's a contribution that it's really worth looking into, because that's where your life will change its meaning, when you see that you matter. I think if you focus on contribution, all your needs will be met simultaneously. Right away, you'll start feeling significant because people will appreciate what you're doing. You'll start feeling growth because you will want more of it, and you will look for more ways to help others. You'll feel love and connection like you have not loved before, because now when you're contributing to others, you're giving them love without wanting anything back in return. There is no strings attached that I love you only if you are the same like me, only if you believe what I believe. You can love people and contribute to them even if they completely disagree with you. I think the best story in the entire Bible is the story of a Good Samaritan, because that's when Jesus actually said, you know what? Not the priest and not the Levite who went to the temple. Might as well say, not the circumcision and not the elder who were going to the meeting, but the apostate who helped the beat up brother. He is your neighbor. And for Jewish people to hear this, that the Samaritan was the neighbor, they did not even say hi to the Samaritans, just like Jehovah's Witnesses would not say hi to this fellowship person or an apostate. Samaritans were apostates to Jewish people because they just created their own worship out of Judaism. They were apostates, and that's why Jewish people wouldn't talk to them. And Jesus now says, guess what? Love your God and love your neighbor, and then love your neighbor. Who is your neighbor? The person who treats you well, not the person who has the same religion, not the person who has a special privileges in the temple or in the congregation, but the person who behaves as your brother. He is your brother. So he basically said, don't judge people based on their religion and their beliefs. Judge them based on their behavior. What they do, their actions will define of who they are in their heart. It's a concept that Jehovah's Witnesses don't understand. They read that story, they know the story very well. They quote it all the time, and they don't understand it. Because for them, they start behaving like Pharisees. Like this, they need to know that you got to put a label on a person in order to know how to behave around them. That's how it is. When it comes to variety, it is wonderful to know that so many people, after leaving the religion, start living their authentic life. That they're doing things that they always wanted to do, and yet they had no time for it, or they were not doing because somebody told them, hey, it's not supposed to focus on those things. That's materialistic, or that's just selfish. But the fact that they can try different things and explore different things and travel to many different places and do things that previously would be viewed as a waste of life and a waste of time. It's their life. And it's wonderful to see that people are able to do and enjoy their life because they know the clock is ticking. We know that the life that we have is so precious because it will end. And the variety is wonderful because we can taste and see how wonderful this life is and explore things. And at the end, certainty. How do you get certainty after you leave such a place where there was 100% certainty about everything, and now you're uncertain about everything? You don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't know what's going to happen to you after you die. You don't know about this. You don't know about that. You don't know whether we're living the last days. There's so many questions and thousands of questions that maybe you have in your head. I tell you what, certainty should come from reality, not from delusion. Certainty should come from reality. We should have reasonable expectations. People talk about faith, like faith is such a huge virtue. What is faith? Well, faith for me is you believe into is in something without the proper evidence. There's no evidence for it, but you believe that something is true. You're certain of it. It's a feeling of certainty that something is true without the evidence for it. That's what faith is. But I believe, and this is my personal belief, that faith is not really a virtue. It's not a bad thing, but as long as we understand that we could believe something very strongly and be completely wrong about it. We could even die for our beliefs. So many people believe. I mean, look around the world. Everybody believes they're right in every religion. Nobody ever said, you know what, I am a Christian, but I'm a false Christian. I'm a Muslim, but I'm a false Muslim. No, everybody believes that their religion, that their beliefs will save them. They have this special recipe of how to be saved. And every time a new recipe comes out of what is needed in order to be saved, a new religion is created. Every single time. This is why, as I'm speaking right now, probably a new religion begins. There's like 4,000 of them already. But I believe that we should actually look at the real world, examine the evidence, learn how to examine the things around us to find what is real, because we could be misled. And at the same time, studying history can really help us to find certainty, because we went through a lot of different things in this world and a lot of big challenges. And guess what? We were able to overcome it. We were able to overcome much bigger wars that we're dealing with right now, much bigger pandemics that we just finished dealing with right now. We were able to deal with much bigger problems with medieval times and problem with freedom of speech and how one king would go and conquer the whole world, and the inequality and slavery and you name it. We were able to deal with much more difficult things in the history that we're dealing with right now. And I believe that we're all wanting the same thing. And that the one thing that we all want is to improve the quality of life. That's what I believe. And that's the purpose of all of us. We get to choose how to do it, but everybody wants to improve the quality of life. And once we put this in our heads, then we get to choose how to improve the quality of life for ourselves and others. And the certainty will find us. And we won't be afraid of tomorrow and the news and all the things that we're programming to our mind that this is the end. Don't worry about it. The end might come at any moment. We don't know when our end is. We don't know how many tomorrows we have. What we do know is that we have it now. What we have is a present. And we should be grateful and thankful for every single day we have, because it's so precious. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.